Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a kind and beautiful girl named Ella. Her golden hair shone like sunlight, and her eyes were as bright as the spring sky. Everyone who met her loved her gentle heart and sweet smile. When Ella was very young, her mother passed away. Before she left this world, she held her daughter's hand and whispered, "No matter what happens, always be kind, my dear. Never lose hope, because goodness will always find its reward." Ella carried those words in her heart every day. After some time, her father married again, but the woman he married was proud and selfish. She had 2 daughters who were just as vain and unkind as she was. At first, they pretended to be friendly, but little by little, they showed their true nature. Soon, Ella was forced to do all the work around the house. She woke before sunrise to sweep the floors, scrub the fireplaces, wash clothes, cook meals, and serve her stepmother and stepsisters. No matter how hard she worked, nobody thanked her. Her beautiful dresses became old and worn. Her hands grew rough from endless chores. Every evening, she sat beside the fireplace, covered in ashes from the hearth. Because of this, everyone began calling her Cinderella. Yet despite everything, Cinderella never became bitter. She remained kind, gentle, and hopeful. One day, exciting news spread throughout the kingdom. The king was hosting a grand royal ball. The prince would attend and choose the young woman he wished to marry. Every eligible maiden in the kingdom was invited. Cinderella's stepsisters squealed with excitement. For days they talked about their dresses, their hairstyles, and how they would impress the prince. Secretly, Cinderella wished she could attend too, even if only for one magical evening. Gathering her courage, she asked her stepmother, "May I go to the ball as well?" Her stepmother laughed cruelly. "You? Go to the royal ball?" She looked Cinderella up and down. A servant belongs in the kitchen, not in a palace. The stepsisters burst into laughter. On the evening of the ball, everyone got ready. The carriage arrived. The stepmother and stepsisters climbed inside, wearing their finest gowns and jewellery. Soon they disappeared down the road. Cinderella stood alone at the doorway, watching them leave. Tears filled her eyes. She walked into the garden and sat beneath a tree. The stars sparkled above her. She quietly cried into her hands. Suddenly, a soft golden light appeared around her. Cinderella looked up in surprise. The light grew brighter and brighter until a kindly fairy appeared before her. "Why are you crying, dear child?" asked the fairy. Cinderella told her everything. The fairy listened carefully and smiled. "Do not worry," she said. "You shall go to the ball." With a wave of her wand, a pumpkin became a magnificent golden carriage. The mice turned into beautiful white horses. The lizards became royal coachmen. Then the fairy waved her wand once more. Cinderella's old clothes vanished. In their place appeared a sparkling blue gown, more beautiful than anything she had ever seen. On her feet were delicate glass slippers that glittered like diamonds. Cinderella could hardly believe her eyes. The fairy smiled warmly. "Remember," she warned, "when the clock strikes midnight, the magic will end." Cinderella promised she would not forget. Then she climbed into the carriage and set off for the palace. The royal palace glowed with thousands of lights. Music filled the air. Laughter echoed through the grand halls. Then Cinderella appeared at the top of the palace staircase. The entire ballroom fell silent. Every eye turned toward her. Even the musicians seemed to forget how to play. The prince could not take his eyes off her. He immediately approached and asked her to dance. Together they danced across the ballroom floor. They talked and laughed. The prince felt happier than he ever had before. Cinderella felt as though she were living inside a dream. Hours passed like minutes. Then suddenly, the great clock tower began to chime. Dong! Cinderella froze. Midnight had arrived. The fairy's warning rushed back into her mind. Without another word, she turned and ran. The prince called after her, but Cinderella hurried down the grand staircase as fast as she could. In her haste, one of her glass slippers slipped from her foot. She didn't stop to pick it up. She ran to her carriage and disappeared into the night. The prince picked up the shining slipper and held it carefully in his hands. "I will find her," he vowed. The next morning, the search began. The prince and his guards travelled from village to village, from town to town. Every young woman in the kingdom tried on the glass slipper, but none of them could wear it. Finally, the prince arrived at Cinderella's house. The stepsisters eagerly pushed forward. One tried to squeeze her foot into the slipper. The other attempted to force it on, but neither succeeded. Just as the prince was about to leave, Cinderella stepped forward quietly. "May I try?" she asked. Her stepmother immediately protested, but the prince nodded. Cinderella sat down. The glass slipper slid onto her foot perfectly. It fit as though it had been made for her alone. Everyone gasped. The prince smiled. At last, he had found the mysterious girl from the ball. Soon afterward, a magnificent wedding was held at the palace. Flowers filled the gardens. Church bells rang across the kingdom. People celebrated for days. Cinderella and the prince were married. But Cinderella never forgot where she had come from. She treated everyone with kindness and compassion. She helped those in need and remained humble despite becoming a princess. For it was never the beautiful dress or the glass slippers that made Cinderella special. It was her kind heart. And so Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after. And to this day, people still say that kindness, patience, and hope can turn even the most ordinary life into a fairy tale.